Hey, everybody. You're looking good tonight.
You can't see them. You're lying.
I think they're looking good. I'm going to assume they look good because it's episode 145, everybody. I'm Connor Dempsey. That's Dustin Weldon, and welcome to the HooperCast, everyone.
Hey.
Hey.
Welcome. How's it going?
I hope you're having a great week. I just thought you might want to think about a few things that are on the rental circuit if you're headed that way this weekend or during the week. During the week, it's a lot easier to just sort of pick at these things, and the weekend, maybe you want to see some new releases and go out to the theater and stuff. But during the week, you can pop over to Redbox or lots of streaming services and check out some of these films.
Yes.
So we saw a few lately that we thought were worth noting that we probably would have talked about on the podcast had we seen them at the time. So I saw Her.
Yes.
A few nights ago. Her, which is, I believe, written and directed by Spike Jonze. Starring Joaquin Phoenix, Amy Adams, a little bit of Chris Pratt in there, and the voice of Scarlett Johansson. And it is a film set in the kind of near future about a man who falls in love with an operating system. And a bunch of things really struck me about this movie. First of all, I really loved Her.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure to watch. Like, except for the uncomfortable part. It's weird because this is a film that essentially is exploring like the idea of, the age-old idea of someone who's kind of having a hard time with relationships, finding someone who truly understands them. And so in this world, the thing that truly understands them is an operating system that is designed to completely understand them.
Yep.
And so how do you carry on a relationship with an artificial intelligence? Yep. And I thought that was a really cool idea. I saw this on I'll tell you this, it's not there anymore. I watched this on HBO Now, or HBO. I use Now, but it's on HBO. So, but not anymore. I tried to get the rest of something happened. Like I was 10 minutes from finishing the film, and this was on like New Year's Eve. So when I popped in the next day to finish it, I think it had fallen off HBO. So I didn't see the ending, but I know what the ending is.
Yes.
So it's not on HBO anymore, but you can go find this movie anywhere. In short, I do recommend it because I think that someone pointed out the fact that there's like as little of the color blue as possible in this film. I just enjoyed looking at a future that was not just blue and neon and lights and all this stuff. And it was just this really warm color palette. I normally don't talk about color in films because I don't notice it that much, but in Her, it's very deliberate, like use of a warm color palette. And I just thought it was nice and different and inviting, and I just felt safe, and it was great. And I thought that Joaquin Phoenix delivers a really good performance here. You saw Her, right, Dustin?
I did.
Okay. Did you like it too?
I did like it.
Yeah. I think it's pleasant. It's just a nice, simple film, and that's what I love about it. The plot is completely character centric. There's no like he has to get the thing to the thing so the thing can happen. It's just like I'm desperate for connection, and I connect with this, basically my phone, but it has a sexy voice, and and people they have intercourse in this film. So prepare yourself for that because it is certainly different. And I watched this with my 20-month-old son, by the way.
He won't remember it.
I sure hope not. Anyway, I think Scarlett Johansson does a really good job as Samantha, the voice of the operating system. And Amy Adams gives a really nice performance in here too. This supporting role as this character named Amy. I just really enjoyed this look at the future. There's some really great cinematography. That's what I want to talk about, the cinematography. I don't even know who the cinematographer is. But you can tell, I mentioned I watched it with my 20-year-old son.
20-year-old, whoa. Where have I been?
My 20-year-old son, Dan. No,
Dan.
I watched it with my 20-month-old son, and I mention that because when you have good cinematography, the cinematographer is Hoyt. Wow, what the F is your name? Hoyt van Hoytema.
Okay.
Dutch Swiss cinematographer.
Gotcha.
Okay, so he did. Well, he didn't shoot Spectre. That was Deakins, wasn't it? No, that was him. Yeah, so he's the
Deakins
cinematographer.
Shot Skyfall.
That's right. He shot Skyfall. So he shot Spectre.
Okay.
He shot Interstellar.
Okay.
And he shot Dunkirk.
Mm.
So
Okay.
Hoyt van Hoytema.
Okay.
The cinematography is gorgeous, and you can tell there was no like dumb. I didn't think there was any handheld in here, but there are so many shots that you can tell that a cinematography is done right. When my son, who has no idea what the plot is, doesn't know what's going on, but he stares at the screen for several minutes at a time, unbroken, because of how beautiful the image is or how beautiful the movement is, and how gentle the soundtrack, the score is. And I think that's a mark of a really clean and beautiful film. That a toddler looks up and goes, "Wow, that's nice looking. I like that."
Right.
I also like that my son appreciates that too. That's kind of cool.
I know, right?
But I really recommend her. I just thought it was a really nice, a really pleasant watch, and tackling a subject matter that's fundamental to human nature, the connection, and how you might do that in a digital world, and how what would be stigmatized. And it's really nice how tolerant everybody is in this world. Like when the idea of dating operating system is mentioned, no one goes, "What the hell? What did you say?" They all go, "Oh, that's cool." Like there's no like that's weird. So you can skip all that like stigma thing that's normal in other films where it's like, "Oh, you're dating a black guy or something." Like just all those things. It's just like yeah, we've seen that before. So this is a film that skips stigma and goes straight to because I guess at this point in the future it's like my best friend's my OS, so
Right.
Anyway, I've talked more than I wanted to about it, but I really enjoyed her, and I really do recommend that anyone out there who's looking for just a nice, easy film to watch, but it's also thought-provoking, I think her is perfect for that.
A couple episodes ago, we talked about Bright. And we were talking about how some people have a problem with it using, this genre or this allegory to tell a story about our world.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing with her, and I think it works. You're telling a story about connection. You're telling a story about love through this science fiction-y kind of lens. And I think that the genre of this science fiction world, and all of the implications therein, really, really helps sell what Spike Jonze is actually trying to say.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good example of that working in a film's favor.
Absolutely. So yeah, check out her. I'm not sure where to get. I'm sure if you have Apple TV or anything, you can get it on iTunes or rent it. You can go to the library and rent it. I bet it's widely available. But I watch it. I'm willing to bet you won't be sorry that you did.
Yeah.
Dustin, you have a documentary that you saw?
Yeah,
right?
So if you check out Hulu, there's a documentary on there. It's a Hulu original. It's called, I believe it's called Batman and Bill. And so this tells the story of Bill Finger. For those of you who don't know, in the 1930s, late 1930s, National Comics had bought a character called Superman, and he was blowing up the newspaper stands. And National came to a couple of its creators and said, "Hey, can you give us another character like Superman?" And Bob Kane said, "Yeah, I think I can." So he went home and he drew an image of a man with hard, fixed bat wings. He was in a red costume and wore a tiny domino mask like Robin does in throughout his run. And he called him Batman. He had blonde hair. He was, a muscular white guy. And he called him Batman. And he knew a guy named Bill Finger who was an artist. He ran it by Bill Finger. He said, I just don't know that this is working. And Bill Finger said, let me take a crack at it. And what Bill Finger came up with was, instead of hard fixed wings, a cape. And instead of red, he chose gray. Mm-hmm. Instead of no emblem, he gave him a bat emblem. And instead of a domino mask, he gave him a cowl with pointy ears. Bob Kane said, that's great. That's awesome. And he takes it back to National Comics and sells the character. And in the contract, creates a clause which states that forever, Bob Kane will be credited as the sole creator of Batman forever. Obviously, that doesn't sound quite fair because Bill Finger really created a lot of what I just described was, actually is Batman. And everything that Bob Kane came up with was not quite Batman. So it didn't seem quite fair, but he kept Bill Finger on as a writer. And so what ended up happening was, over the next few years, as they're trying to write these Batman stories for DC, they ended up telling a number of stories. Bill Finger told a number of stories under Bob Kane's name because Bob Kane is the only one that can receive credit for this character. So essentially ghostwriting for Bob Kane, Bill Finger came up with the Joker, came up with Catwoman, came up with Scarecrow, Penguin, Riddler, the name Gotham City, the Batmobile, the Batcave, and Robin. And Commissioner Gordon. So basically everything else that we know about Batman and love about Batman, Bill Finger created as a ghostwriter under the name Bob Kane. And Bob Kane took all that money to the bank and left Bill Finger pretty much penniless. Bill Finger died alone in his apartment complex, unrecognized, and never received credit for writing Batman officially, except for one episode of the Adam West Batman television series, which he co-wrote. So sad story. The film follows a man who is obsessed with Bill Finger and wants Bill Finger to receive credit. However, the only way that Bill Finger can receive credit is if an heir, i.e. a son, a grandson, daughter, granddaughter, was able to claim and fight for her or his relatives' successes. Mm-hmm. So the filmmaker tries to find somebody who can do just that. And long story short, if you've seen Batman vs. Superman, you saw the very first time in history this appear on the screen. Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. So spoiler alert, it works. Bill Finger is now going to be credited as the co-creator of Batman forever. Thanks to the hard work of this filmmaker and especially Bill Finger's great granddaughter. I don't think it's great. I think it's just granddaughter. And so through all of this hard work, Bill Finger will now receive credit. It's a great story. If you're an artist, I think it's an important story because it tells how easily it is to be misled and make bad deals in the business. It also tells you that your contributions are worth something and are worth fighting for. It's not selfish to ask to receive credit for your work, and I think is just a good, important story about artistry and collaboration, and that there are selfish people out there, and I'm not necessarily calling Bob Kane selfish, but there are selfish people out there who will take advantage of you and your kindness. And perhaps one of the most important creations in all of fictional in all of detective fiction for sure, but in all of fiction probably in general, Batman was not credited to the right person for a very long time. So it's the story of that, and I thought it was really great, definitely worth a watch, and I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Yeah, Hulu subscribers, check that out. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
There's a couple more I saw that I've got a lot less to say about. We now own Cars 3 on Blu-ray via a big Christmas bundle that Santa Claus bought or constructed, whatever he does.
No,
with
his
Blu-rays.
elves made him, Hooper. Gosh.
Yeah, I know. They
right.
Illegally, they ripped these CDs and Anyway,
Correct. They bought one copy of Cars 3 and then replicated that illegally.
Just put it in a handbrake and distributed it to stocking.
But you can't prosecute an elf. So,
well, in Bright you could, and maybe that's what we'll see in Bright too.
Oh snap! What if Santa Claus is in Bright too? It's a Christmas special. Hooper, we just cracked it.
Good night, everybody. So I saw Cars 3. I'm not a fan overall of the Cars franchise. Cars was the first Pixar film that I thought was okay as opposed to great.
Yeah.
Cars 2 I thought was horrible. Have you seen that thing?
I have not.
Don't. That's
the only Pixar movie I've not seen.
It's horrible. Like, it has nothing to do with racing. It's all about Mater's a secret agent. And it's like, this is some direct-to-video BS, yo.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Isn't Michael Caine in that?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Anyway, so Cars 3 is like, okay, so now we're done with the international espionage. We're back to racing. And Lightning McQueen is getting up there. And there's new racers coming in. They're faster. They're better built for speed. And they're gradually replacing him and his contemporaries on the track. And so, he basically, in a manner of speaking, like saddles up for essentially, not really a goodbye or like a farewell, season, but pretty much like, all right, I need to give this one good crack to sort of prove that I can still do it. And then I'll head out. And along the way sort of finds new meaning in racing and possibly other ways that he can contribute to the sport. And so this film is better than Cars 2 in that it has a plot and an arc of characters. Mater is very sparingly in it. I mean, and when half the time he's in it, he's actually doing or saying something helpful or meaningful. He's not just there for jokes. Sometimes, so that's good. I don't know, again, like there was an arc, there was a close to the Lightning McQueen story. So in that way, I do recommend Cars 3. It's still okay. It's just as, it's just like the first one. I mean, not just like, I just mean like it's just as satisfying as the first one. And then there's an arc. He's somewhere at the beginning of it, and then he finds himself in a different, hopefully better place at the end of it. So in that way, it's exactly as satisfying as the first film is. So if you liked Cars, I would recommend Cars 3 because, especially if you hated Cars 2, come back. Cars 3 is, the part of the franchise that deserved to be there instead of Cars 2. And kids will like it because there's talking cars and stuff. There's still a bunch of strange things. Like there's a bunch of things that are around them that they couldn't have possibly built with tires for hands. If you watch any of the Honest trailers for the Cars films, he gets real like paranoid about where are all the people. Like there's like a Reddit post about this. Like, where are all the there must have been people because who built the cars? Do the cars have sex? Do they have babies? How do they have babies? Where are their vaginas? And like where's their genitalia? And there's a whole thing about like what happened to the people? Did the cars eat the people? Then who builds everything? How do they talk? Crazy things like that. So again, like I said, they're like I had said, the rookies are like they're more built for speed. It's like, well, who built them? Who built them? Wouldn't their parents have to be like also like Ferrari like speed cars?
Right.
These are things, and again, like if you want, that's asking too much of cars to build a world. But at the same time, like I can't creatively get past it because I'm like, okay, there's a very clear like Truman Show style wall that I hit with that world where I go, hey, what's beyond this? And some large guy in a suit goes, don't you dare come back here. There ain't nothing for you back here.
Right.
So anyway, if you can get past that, Cars 3 is satisfying.
Yeah.
Cool. It's fine. Like I say, it's fine. I don't care to watch it again. But I didn't feel like I wasted my time either.
Yeah, sure.
The other film that I feel like I did waste my time was Kong Skull Island. Yeah. Okay. So, and you've seen this film, directed by Jordan Vogt, whatever his name is, Jordan Vogt Roberts. Yeah. Written by Dan Gilroy, Max Bornstein, and Derek Connolly. I recognize Dan Gilroy's name of the Gilroy family, Tony Gilroy. So this is not only a reboot of the King Kong franchise, but it is the second film in Legendary Pictures' Monsterverse, the first one being Godzilla, which I also didn't like. I also watched this film on HBO, and this looked really cool from all the trailers I saw. This had like the whole the Vietnam atmosphere and cool soundtrack because it's the late 60s or the early 70s, and it's King Kong and stuff. I really didn't like it. I feel like the cast is wasted. You've got Tom Hiddleston playing, I mean, it's fine for an actor to play against type. He's playing the generic tracker tough guy. Yeah. But he's borderline miscast because I just don't see why it had to be him. Other than I know why, because he's a recognizable face and name to people because of the Marvel films. That's the only use for casting him. Samuel L. Jackson's in here, who always makes hay out of whatever he's given, so he's fine. John Goodman's in here. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Brie Larson's here. Brie Larson does nothing in this film. Yeah. She has no character, and if you're a big, if you're a big feminist, but if you want characters to have traits, you should be angry at the Brie Larson character because she doesn't do anything. Yeah. And she immediately buddies up to the Hiddleston person for no reason too. So it's just she doesn't even have an independent agenda. They just all come on, and again, there's no reason. John C. Reilly is in this. This film is just it's built up as it looks cool based on the trailers, but I mean, and most of all, I'm disappointed in the characterization of Kong. I don't know anything about this dude, this ape, this giant ape. I don't know, in the Peter Jackson one, I feel like there was a character there. I don't feel like there's a character with this Kong, and I don't know if it was performance capture. I assume it was, but this Kong, all you hear about him is hey, he lives on this island, and if he's not around, the other bad monsters come up and he keeps them at bay. And so he's a check on the ecosystem, a natural predator. It's okay, so why should I care about him going into this monsterverse? What's right? Were you going to get him off the island? How are you going to motivate Kong to leave the island if his whole purpose is to be on it to keep the monsters at bay? Yeah. You just told me a very good reason why he shouldn't be franchised. Right. Other than making a terrible film. So I did not like Kong Skull Island. There's some weird stuff in there. It's one of those films that just ends. And it's oh, okay. Yep. It's over. Yeah. And there's some weird stuff. There's a scene. I mean, someone tosses a sword to somebody else, and that person runs through a cloud of mini dinosaurs, and with expert precision, slow motion slices them 300 style. And I'm and that's where that is the point where I went, okay, you lost me. Yeah. If that had been the character who has the sword originally, that would make sense to me because that person probably practiced with this sword a lot. Right. Showcase their skill with it. I mean, that person does a couple of things, but the person who does the slow motion scene with the sword, when is it set up that you know how to wield a sword, guy? Right. It was just that it felt like when you're a kid and you're just I have a sword and you swing around, that's what you imagine in your head is just perfectly everywhere the blade goes, there's an enemy that just gets cut in half. Right. And I just thought I didn't like it.
I gotcha. So this is weird because I didn't mind Kong Skull Island. I obviously didn't love it. I don't own it. I wouldn't be against seeing it again. The weird thing for me is, you're right. There is no characterization, but I would say not even just for Brie Larson, for anybody. Yeah. Obviously, it's almost like John C. Reilly is making his own movie. It's a little bit like Samuel L. Jackson is making his own movie, and John Goodman is kind of just there because it's a paycheck. Right. The other two leads, if you want to call them that, Bree and Tom, I feel like are really unnecessary characters. Yep. There's no reason for them to be there. But I thought it was shot really well. It was fun to watch for me. And I kind of didn't mind it because I guess very early on I bought into the idea that this was a B movie. This was not a like Peter Jackson style movie. This was, to me, like something you'd find on like a VHS tape that like didn't really, like, it was just straight to video. And that's really what I got out of it. It's like an effects reel kind of, but it's a really good effects reel. And so I don't know, for me, I didn't hate it. And I think it was because I don't know. Maybe the big monkey, I don't know. But for me, I didn't hate it. Like, I feel so weird because I feel like I'm in this camp where like everyone I talk to is like mad at this movie. And I was like, I'm not mad at it. It didn't wow me. It didn't do anything great. Except I do think it was shot really well.
Just so you know, that's where I usually am. Welcome to my usual camp.
It's
so pissed at this.
Right. Yeah. For me, I was just like, it was a bad monster movie, but that's what I thought it would be, and that's what it was. And you're talking about the scene with the sword. That was the scene. Silly. That was the single scene that made me roll my eyes and say
it didn't belong. It was completely like out of. The tone was the style.
It really
everything.
Was because everything else is like old school monster movie, right. And that is like
Sucker Punch.
Yeah, it's so weird. It doesn't fit at all. Because I'm also like, since when are these characters supposed to be like fun to watch? Because the only fun thing to watch here is Kong and the other CG monsters kill people.
Yeah.
That's all that's fun. It would have been fun if the guy with the sword like went out with the sword and the little monsters tore him apart. Like, then it would have been fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That was the scene that I hated. But I guess all in all, I was just like, yeah, it's a B monster movie. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's a mixed reaction on Kong Skull Island. So if you want to check that out, who do you side with? You know, I mean, it's certainly not boring to watch. I don't know, maybe.
Anyway. Here's the thing. I wouldn't say rush out and go get this. I would say like, I got some time. It's an easy get. I'll get it.
Yeah. Go get her instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want some other recommendations for stuff to watch for the weekend, if you tune in tomorrow, you're going to hear the Quick Pick by us. That's our audio only dealio. So that'll be on the channel tomorrow. So
Did you say Dealio?
Dealio. Yeah, man.
All right. It's 2004.
It's been a strange day. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys, for tuning into the channel. So get out and go see some movies, or stay in and see some good movies, because that's possible these days, because we're in the future.
We are.
Anyway, thank you, Dustin. Thank you, audience. And thank you, in part, film industry, for making things that are cool and thought-provoking and entertaining for us to talk about. Because without it, I feel like I'm praying. Without which we would be nothing. No, I just anyway. So I'm glad that movies exist, but don't get too comfortable. It's like okay, here's a quick hug. Okay, stop hugging me. Like, that's enough. Like, that's just a couple back pats and they're holding on. I'm like, no, not that much.
I feel sometimes like me and you are like cats, and the movie industry is like, we just want to cuddle you, and we're like, no, get away. No. Like we'll allow it for an hour and a half, and after that, stop it.
No, I will rub up against you, but I don't want you to pet me. I want to be left alone.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will come to you when I want a movie, and I will stay as long as I choose.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time. Tomorrow on the Quick Pick, and then next week on the other full episodes.
Sweet.
See ya.